The Silent Guardians. The night sky above Lorith Prime had always been a canvas of peace. For generations, the Lorithi, slender beings with iridescent skin that reflected the colors of their emotions, had gazed upward with wonder rather than fear. Their civilization had flourished through diplomacy and art, their cities elegant spirals of living crystal that reached toward the three moons they considered sacred. That peace shattered the day the Vex Dominion arrived. The invasion began without warning. Black ships with jagged profiles tore through the atmosphere like obsidian knives, their weapons turning the famous crystal gardens of Jorel into superheated glass. The Lorithi Defense Corps, maintained more as tradition than necessity, lasted less than 6 hours before their command structure collapsed. In the underground caverns beneath Lorith's capital, First Speaker Talia Nurim pressed her palm against the cold surface of a device she'd hoped never to use. The ancient terminal, a relic from a time before her species had been welcomed into the Galactic Council, hummed to life, its display flickering with symbols from a language no living Lorithi had been taught to read. "You cannot activate that," Council Observer Kareth said, his uniform still pristine despite the chaos above. The Charter explicitly forbids requesting intervention from non-sanctioned forces. Talia's skin rippled from pale blue to a determined amber. "They're destroying everything, Kareth. The Vex aren't just conquering. They're exterminating. The Council's response fleet is 3 weeks away. We'll be extinct by then." "You don't understand what you're doing," Kareth whispered, a tremor in his voice. "If you send that signal, I know exactly what I'm doing," Talia said, pressing the final sequence. "I'm saving my people. The Pact of Sol may have been buried in history, but my grandmother made sure our family never forgot." The device pulsed once, a ripple of energy that passed through the rock around them, aimed at a relay station hidden in the scattered debris of their system's asteroid belt. From there, it would jump across a network of ancient beacons, following a path unused for centuries, straight to a system that had removed itself from galactic maps. Earth. For 200 years, humanity had been a ghost story in the galaxy. They had withdrawn so completely that younger species doubted they had ever existed. The Council's official position was that Earth had suffered some catastrophic collapse, a convenient explanation for why the once formidable power had disappeared behind closed borders and severed jump gates. The truth was more complicated and far more dangerous. Deep in the void between stars, in a region designated only as the Blind, a silent sentinel station detected the Lorithi signal. For the first time in generations, warning lights flashed across dormant systems, and machines slumbered for centuries roused themselves. In a chamber sealed beneath the lunar surface, Commander Elias Chen opened his eyes, consciousness flowing back as the cryostasis field dissolved. His muscles burned with the familiar pain of revival, but his mind cleared quickly, just as his training had ensured it would. "Signal authentication confirmed," a calm synthetic voice announced. "Lorith Prime. Pact of Sol, Article 3 invoked. Emergency Protocol Omega is now active." Chen's feet touched the cold floor, his body remembering its purpose before his mind fully processed the implications. 200 years. They had waited 200 years for this moment, for someone to remember that humanity had once promised to answer when called. "Status report," he said, voice rough from disuse. "Vex Dominion forces have occupied 62% of Lorith Prime. Civilian casualties estimated at 3.2 million. Indigenous military resistance has collapsed. Genocidal intent confirmed through signal intelligence." Chen nodded, face grim. "Wake the 7th Fleet. All of it." Throughout the solar system, hidden facilities stirred to life. On Mars, vast hangars opened beneath the red dust. In Jupiter's orbit, stealth platforms disengaged their camouflage fields. Beneath Earth's oceans, production facilities that had worked tirelessly in secret accelerated their output. Humanity had not been sleeping. It had been preparing. The Praetorian, flagship of the 7th Fleet, emerged from its lunar dock, a massive vessel that reflected no light, as though a piece of space had decided to move with purpose. Commander Chen stood on the bridge, now dressed in the gray uniform of the Solar Defense Force, watching as the rest of the fleet assembled. "The Council banned us from interfering in galactic affairs," his executive officer said quietly. "The Council banned us after we ended the Korthos genocide too efficiently," Chen corrected. "They called us monsters for doing what was necessary, for refusing to watch billions die while they debated the political implications." He turned to face the tactical display. "We honored their wishes. We withdrew. But we never stopped watching, and we never abandoned our promises." Across the bridge, officers moved with practiced precision, as though their 2 centuries of drills had been conducted yesterday rather than across generations. The Solar Defense Force had maintained its readiness through a dedication that bordered on religious devotion, passing down its purpose from parent to child. "Jump calculations complete," the navigation officer announced. "Fleet is in formation." Chen nodded once. "Execute." The 7th Fleet, 97 warships carrying the accumulated military knowledge and technological advancement of a civilization that had turned its full attention to defense, vanished from the Sol system, tearing holes in space that closed behind them like wounds healing too quickly to scar. On Lorith Prime, the situation had deteriorated. Vex ground forces, 8-foot-tall soldiers in mechanized armor with multiple limbs ending in weapons and tools designed for efficient slaughter, had begun systematic purges of major population centers. The Lorithi who survived the initial assault were being herded into processing facilities, where their bodies would be converted into biological resources. In the command bunker, Talia watched the last functional surveillance feeds with horror. Her skin had gone gray, the color of Lorethi despair. The signal had been sent days ago. No response had come. Perhaps the humans were truly gone. Perhaps the stories were just myths, or the beacons had degraded beyond function. "The northern continent has gone dark," her aide reported, voice hollow. "Central Command estimates 12 hours before." The aide never finished. The bunker's sensors screamed sudden warnings as space itself seemed to tear open above Lorith Prime. Through these wounds came ships, dozens of them, their hulls dark and angular, moving with a precision that seemed impossible for vessels of their size. "What is it?" Talia asked, hope and fear warring in her voice. "Another Vex fleet." The sensor operator's skin flashed bright gold. Shock. No first speaker. These ships matched no known configuration in Council records. But he paused, checking his readings again. "We're receiving a transmission on all frequencies." The message was simple, broadcast in perfect Lorethi and every other language used on the planet. "This is Commander Elias Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We have received your invocation of the Pact of Sol. Hold fast. Help has arrived." Above the planet, the Vex Dominion's orbital command station detected the new arrivals. Admiral Vec, architect of 16 successful planetary conquests, watched with mild curiosity as his sensors catalogued the unknown fleet. "Another Council species coming to die for these weaklings," he mused. "Redirect the 3rd battle group to intercept. Continue ground operations as planned." His subordinate hesitated. "Admiral, these ships match no known registry. They're not responding to identification queries." Vec's facial tentacles twitched with annoyance. "Then they'll die unnamed. Launch fighter squadrons," and the rest of his order evaporated as the first human strike landed. The Praetorian had not fired its main weapons, not yet. Instead, it had deployed something much smaller, orbital insertion pods containing special forces trained for exactly this scenario. One such pod crashed through the command station's outer hull, reaching 3 decks before deploying its cargo, 6 human soldiers in advanced combat suits that made them appear more machine than flesh. They moved with methodical precision, neutralizing Vex security forces before they could organize a response. Within 4 minutes, human forces had secured the command deck. Admiral Vec found himself staring into the faceplate of a human soldier, the first human any Vex had seen in generations. "What is this?" Vec demanded, his species' natural arrogance undiminished even in defeat. "Who dares interfere with Dominion business?" The soldier's helmet retracted, revealing a human woman with dark skin and eyes that had seen too many battlefields to be moved by threats. "Commander Serena Corps, Earth Special Forces," she said calmly. "You've violated the territory of a species under humanity's protection. Stand down your forces immediately, or experience firsthand why the galaxy once feared us." Vec's laughter was genuine. "Earth, the ghosts. The cowards who ran and hid rather than face the Council's judgment. You've made a fatal mistake returning to galactic affairs." Commander Corps didn't blink. "We never left. We just stopped explaining ourselves." She tapped her wrist console once. "You have 1 hour to begin evacuation of your ground forces. After that, we stop asking nicely." As Corps' team secured the command station, similar operations were underway across the Vex fleet. The humans moved with a coordination and effectiveness that bordered on the supernatural, neutralizing Vex advantages through targeted strikes rather than brute force. On the planet's surface, the first human ground forces were already deploying, not in the major cities where fighting was heaviest, but in remote areas where Lorethi resistance cells still operated. They brought weapons, medical supplies, and something even more valuable: a battle plan developed by an AI system that had spent 2 centuries analyzing every recorded Vex military action. From his flagship, Commander Chen watched the tactical display with clinical detachment. The Vex were responding exactly as predicted, reallocating forces to counter perceived threats while leaving critical vulnerabilities exposed. "They've refused the evacuation order," his communications officer reported. Chen nodded, unsurprised. "Then we proceed as planned. Begin Phase 2. Across Lorith Prime, the scattered human forces activated their beacon devices. In orbit, the 7th Fleet's ships adjusted their positions with micrometric precision. Then, as one, they fired, not at the Vex ships or ground forces, but at what appeared to be empty points in the upper atmosphere. The resulting energy cascade tore through the Vex communications network like a digital plague, severing their command structure and leaving isolated units without tactical guidance. Simultaneously, the human ground teams began coordinating with Lorethi resistance fighters, providing them with weapons designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in Vex armor. The tide hadn't yet turned. The Vex still held overwhelming numerical superiority. But for the first time since the invasion began, the Lorethi could see a path to survival. In the bunker, First Speaker Talia watched the tactical displays with growing hope as the colors shifted, showing human and Lorethi forces beginning to push back against the invaders. Her skin had transformed from gray to a brilliant blue tinged with green. Determination mixed with hope. "The humans came," she whispered, almost unable to believe it. After all this time, they remembered their promise. Council observer Karith's face had gone pale. "You don't understand what you've done," he repeated, but now his voice held not concern but fear. "The Council isolated humanity for a reason. Once unleashed, they won't simply defeat the Vex. They'll rewrite the balance of power in the entire sector." Talia turned to him, her skin now pulsing with a deep, resolute crimson. "Good." Above them, the Praetorian moved into position for the next phase of humanity's return to the galactic stage. A return that would soon remind the Council why they had once tried so hard to make humanity disappear. Wrath of the Forgotten. The dawn broke over Lorith Prime's capital city, illuminating a battlefield transformed. Throughout the night, human special forces had systematically dismantled the Vex command structure, targeting officers and communication hubs with surgical precision. As morning light filtered through the smoke-filled atmosphere, the Lorethi civilians emerged from hiding to witness something none had thought possible. Vex warriors in retreat. On the Praetorian's command deck, Commander Chen monitored the tactical displays with the patience of a predator. Phase 2 had succeeded beyond projections. The Vex ground forces were fragmented, cut off from their orbital support, and Central Command. The enemy is adapting, his tactical officer noted. They're establishing localized command nodes to compensate for the network collapse. Chen nodded. The Vex weren't known for their flexibility, but they hadn't conquered 17 systems through stubbornness alone. Proceed with Phase 3. Authorized deployment of the Dagger units. Throughout the contested regions of Lorith Prime, small stealth craft descended through the atmosphere, each carrying a 5-person team of Earth's most elite soldiers. Unlike the standard forces already engaged, these operators wore combat suits that blended cutting-edge technology with biological enhancements, the result of 2 centuries of unrestrained military research conducted beyond the Council's ethical oversight. These were the Daggers, humans modified to become the perfect countermeasure to species like the Vex. Their mission was simple: decapitate the remaining command structure and create chaos among enemy ranks. In the Eastern Continent's primary processing facility, a grotesque structure where thousands of Lorithi civilians awaited conversion into biological resources, Dagger Team 7 moved like shadows among the Vex guards. Their suit systems rendered them nearly invisible to Vex sensory equipment, allowing them to penetrate deep into the facility before striking. Captain Maya Winters, Dagger 7's leader, positioned her team at strategic points throughout the complex. When all were in position, she gave a single command: execute. What followed wasn't combat in any conventional sense. It was extermination. The Dagger operatives moved with inhuman speed, their augmented strength allowing them to tear through Vex armor like paper. Their neural interfaces predicted enemy movements microseconds before they occurred, making them appear almost prescient in battle. Within 11 minutes, a facility that had held over 200 Vex soldiers was secure. The prisoners, thousands of Lorithi civilians, stared in shocked silence as their rescuers systematically disabled the processing equipment. "You're safe now," Winters told them, her helmet retracting to show a human face, a calculated gesture meant to reassure. "Medical teams are inbound. Anyone who can walk, please help those who cannot." A Lorithi elder approached her, skin shifting through colors that reflected a complex emotional state. "You are human," he said, the translator in Winter's suit converting his melodic language. "We thought your kind was a myth." Winter's expression remained neutral, though something flickered behind her eyes. That was the point. Across the planet, similar scenes unfolded as human forces liberated detention centers and secured strategic locations. The Vex, accustomed to overwhelming their opponents through superior technology and brute force, found themselves outmatched in both categories. Admiral Vec, now confined to a secure holding area aboard his former command station, watched the tactical feeds with growing horror. His forces were being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to anticipate every countermeasure before it was implemented. "Impossible," he muttered, facial tentacles writhing with agitation. "No species possesses this level of tactical coordination." Commander Kor, who had remained to oversee the Admiral's detention, glanced at him with cold assessment. "You're witnessing 200 years of focused military evolution," she said. "While the galaxy thought we had retreated in shame, we were preparing for this moment." For what? To defend this insignificant species. Vec's confusion was genuine. "The Lorithi have nothing of value." "They asked for help," Kor replied simply. "That's all that matters." On the planet's surface, the tide had definitively turned. Human vessels now controlled the skies, eliminating Vex air support and providing cover for ground operations. The remaining Vex forces were falling back to defensive positions, attempting to establish perimeters around their landing sites. In the Crystal Valley, once Lorith's most sacred site, now a battlefield of shattered beauty, Commander Chen had personally led a battalion to secure the ceremonial grounds. The Vex had established their primary ground base here, desecrating the ancient crystal formations by repurposing them into command bunkers. The battle that followed became an instant legend among the watching Lorithi. Human forces demonstrated tactics that seemed impossible. Soldiers moving in perfect synchronization, weapon systems that adapted to Vex defenses in real time, and officers who anticipated enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. They're not just winning. First Speaker Talia whispered as she watched the feed from a secure location. They're teaching us how to fight. Council Observer Kareth didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on a different display, one showing an incoming Council diplomatic vessel, approaching at maximum speed. They know, he said finally. The Council has detected humanity's return. Talia's skin rippled with concern. Will they attempt to intervene? Kareth laughed, the sound brittle with stress. With what force? The humans just dismantled a Vex invasion fleet. Do you think the Council would risk confrontation? He shook his head. No, they're coming to negotiate. The balance of power just shifted, and they know it. In orbit, the Council vessel approached cautiously, maintaining distance from the human fleet. Their transmission came on diplomatic channels, addressed directly to Commander Chen. This is High Counselor Mextar of the Galactic Council. We formally request dialogue regarding the current situation and the unauthorized military action taken by Earth forces. Chen allowed himself a thin smile before responding. This is Commander Elias Chen of the Earth Defense Force. The Pact of Sol was invoked legitimately. Our response is in accordance with treaties predating Council intervention. We will accept diplomatic contact once Lorith Prime is secure. On the Council ship, High Counselor Mextar, an ancient being from one of the galaxy's oldest species, felt a sensation he hadn't experienced in centuries. Genuine fear. The humans had not just returned. They had returned with capabilities far beyond what they'd possessed when they withdrew from galactic affairs. They were ready for this, he murmured to his advisors. All this time, they were preparing. His senior diplomatic advisor, a Telarian with silvery skin and multiple eye stalks, studied the battle telemetry with professional assessment. The withdrawal was strategic, not punitive, she concluded. They used their isolation to develop without oversight or constraint. The question, Mextar said, is what they want now. The answer began to emerge as human forces completed their liberation of Lorith Prime. Rather than establishing permanent bases or claiming territory, they focused on humanitarian assistance and infrastructure restoration. Medical teams treated Lorithi, wounded with technology that accelerated healing. Engineering units repaired critical power systems and water purification facilities. In the capital's central plaza, now secured as a safe zone, Commander Chen met with First Speaker Talia and other Lorithi leaders. The gathering was broadcast across the planet, a deliberate message not just to the Lorithi, but to watching Council observers. The immediate threat has been neutralized, Chen explained, his voice calm and measured. The remaining Vex forces have surrendered or been contained. Their leadership will face justice for their actions. Talia's skin glowed with a luminescent blue of gratitude and reverence. How can we possibly repay this debt? You've saved our entire species. Chen shook his head. There is no debt. The Pact of Sol exists because humanity once promised that we would never again stand idle while genocide occurred. We failed to prevent too many atrocities during our early years among the stars. The Pact is our atonement. But the Council, one of the Lorithi ministers began. The Council made their choice 2 centuries ago, Chen interrupted, his voice hardening slightly. They decided that humanity's methods were too effective, too final. They feared us because when we fought to win, not to establish political advantage or territorial gains. He looked directly into the recording devices, knowing his words would be analyzed by Council intelligence services within hours. Let me be clear about humanity's position. We have no interest in rejoining Council politics or reclaiming our former territories. We remain in self-imposed isolation by choice. But the Pact of Sol stands. Any species facing extinction may call upon us, and we will answer. The message was unmistakable. Humanity had transformed its exile into strength and would no longer accept Council restrictions on its defensive operations. Aboard the Praetorian, Commander Kor presented Admiral Vec to a gathering of human and Lorethi officials. The Vec's leader had been stripped of his ceremonial armor, leaving him appearing smaller and far less imposing. The Dominion will retaliate for this, Vec warned, his voice a hiss of barely contained rage. We do not forget defiance. Chen regarded the Admiral with clinical detachment. Neither do we. The coordinates of every Vec's military installation, shipyard, and command center are already in our database. Should the Dominion attempt reprisal against the Lorethi or any other species under our protection, our response will not be as measured as this one. He turned to a communications officer. Transmit the full tactical package to Dominion High Command. Show them exactly what happened here, and what awaits them if they choose poorly. As the human fleet prepared to depart, having completed their mission with efficiency that bordered on the mechanical, the Council diplomatic vessel finally received permission to approach. High Counselor Mextar himself transported to the Praetorian for direct negotiations, a significant concession that highlighted the Council's recognition of humanity's renewed leverage. The meeting was brief and pointed. The Council acknowledged humanity's right to honor the Pact of Sol, but requested consultation before future interventions. Commander Chen rejected the proposal outright. The Council had 2 centuries to prove it could prevent genocide, he said, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's collective disappointment. The Lorethi would be extinct if we had waited for your approval. Then what do you propose? Mextar asked, ancient eyes studying the human commander. Nothing changes, Chen replied. Earth remains isolated. We continue our own development without interference. And when the weak cry out for protection, we answer, regardless of Council politics. Mextar's expression revealed nothing, but his voice carried resignation. You have become exactly what we feared. No, Chen corrected. We've become what you needed but were too afraid to create, a force that values justice above politics, action above debate. He stood, signaling the end of the discussion. Humanity withdraws from galactic affairs once more, High Counselor. But we will be watching, always watching. On Lorith Prime, as the human vessels prepared to depart, First Speaker Telia stood among her people, watching the ships that had saved their civilization begin to vanish back into the void. The great crystal cathedral, partially restored by human engineering teams, reflected rainbow light across the assembled crowd. Will we ever see them again? A child asked, looking up at the shrinking silhouettes of Earth's fleet. Talia's skin shifted to a complex pattern of blue and silver, hope intertwined with solemn promise. Only if we need them, she answered. They remain apart from us by choice, but they've never abandoned us. Not really. In the deepening twilight, the human ships activated their jump drives, tearing holes in space and disappearing through them one by one. Last to depart was the Praetorian, its massive form hovering over the capital city like a dark guardian. Before it vanished, a final message transmitted to every Lorethi communication device. Remember that you are not alone in this galaxy. Should darkness find you again, look to the stars and call. Earth remembers its promises. Then the ship was gone, leaving only ripples in space that quickly faded, like the passage of a legend returning to shadow, waiting for the next cry for help to echo across the stars. In the council chambers, debates would rage for months about humanity's show of force and what it meant for galactic stability. New defense initiatives would be proposed, alliances reconsidered, and countless intelligence resources dedicated to penetrating Earth's self-imposed isolation. But on 1,000 worlds across the galaxy, among species who lived in fear of powers like the Vex Dominion, a different conversation was taking place. Whispered stories of the silent guardians who had waited centuries in the darkness, preparing to defend those who could not defend themselves. Earth had returned to the galactic stage not as conquerors or diplomats, but as something far more dangerous to the established order, an idea. The idea that power came with responsibility, that the strong had an obligation to protect the weak, and that some principles transcended politics. For Commander Chen, returning to Luna Base after the mission's completion, The outcome represented perfect execution of humanity's long-term strategy. Earth would retreat once more behind its defensive perimeter, continuing its technological advancement in isolation while maintaining its vigilance. The Seventh Fleet resumed its hidden positions throughout the solar system. The daggers returned to cryostasis. The production facilities beneath Earth's oceans continued their work without pause, and humanity waited for the next call to echo across the ancient beacons, a silent guardian in a galaxy that now remembered why it had once feared and needed Earth's unflinching resolve.